Throughout the series, we've been working with 3D objects here and there. Let's take a closer look at some of the things you can do with 3D. I'm going to create a new project, and I'm going to name this 3D. Now, in your project folder, I've added a couple objects that you can work with. And I'm just going to add all of these to my project. The cube and the cube with multiple colors are both just regular cubes, and then I have an MTL file that indicates the materials that are going to be used for the cubes. Let me go ahead and insert the cube with multiple colors first. Now in this case, this is an OBJ file which was produced for me by another application. Well, it could have been produced for me by another application, but in this case, I hand created both of these object files. When I insert it, I get a viewport 3D, just like I got all of the times that I converted an image into a 3D element. Anytime you're working with 3D, you're going to be working in a viewport 3D. There are a couple points to remember with a viewport 3D, however. Whenever you're inside that viewport, you can't create any 2D elements. So I can't create new paths, I can't create new rectangles or anything like that. While I'm in 3D, I work in 3D. While I'm in 2D, I work in 2D. As soon as I select the viewport 3D, I'm going to expand the viewport 3D, and you'll see that it's divided into the camera as well as the world. Now the brackets we saw before when we were doing template editing, that indicates that from here down, this is the camera region of the file. Let me expand my cameras, and you'll see that at the moment I only have one camera. Now before I do anything, let me expand my viewport so we've got a little better view of what we're working with. I'm also going to grab the camera orbit tool, and just by dragging I can change my perspective. So yes, I'm actually working with a cube here, not just a square. Now I'm going to select my camera, and let's take a look at it over in the Property Inspector. The camera has two categories, the transform and the category. Now I can transform the camera in the transform category here if I have a particular value I want to move to. In the camera region, I can also change from an orthographic camera to a perspective camera and back. The perspective camera is going to manipulate the scene as if it was being shown through a regular person's eyes. The orthographic camera doesn't have a concept of warping or distortion based on the distance from the viewer. So when I click that, my camera changes to a perspective that in reality you can never get how this looks with your eyes in the real world. However, if you're working with an architectural diagram or something like that, the orthographic camera can help you keep the perspective of where everything is without introducing external perspective. Now I can modify the position of the camera here as well by typing in any given value, and my camera will move around. Let me switch back to the perspective camera, since that's the camera that most of us are more comfortable using. I can modify the direction as well, just by typing in a new value. Finally, the up vector can be modified either by specifying the vector here, or I can use the spinner here to rotate my perspective. You can kind of pretend if you were working with a real camera that you're physically rotating the camera around while leaving its direction straight forward. Lastly, I can also modify the clipping planes, so right now everything that's anywhere between 0.1 pixels and 100 pixels away from my camera will be displayed. If I reduce my far clipping plane, as I shrink it down, eventually a portion of the cube will fall beyond the far clipping plane and it'll get cut off. Remember that when you're worried about the performance of your application, modifying the near and far clipping plane will increase or decrease the speed of your application based on how many things it needs to work with. Now that's the camera. Let's take a look into the world.